episode of Jay Leno's Garage. Two very exciting cars today. They look like track vehicles, and that's what people use them for, but they are also street legal. In many states, it might differ in your state, but there are quite a number on the road. The BAC Mono, and this is BAC Mono R, which BAC stands for Briggs Automotive Company. Let's meet Ian Briggs. Come on in. You're the genius behind this thing. These are pretty amazing automobiles.
Hi, Jay.
And the fact that you're able to make it street legal, I find just fascinating. These are single-seat cars. And what do we look at? About 311 horsepower here.
The one behind you is 315, and this one's 343.
Oh, 343
yeah.
and 315. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Here in America, torque wins races, horsepower sells cars. It's the power to weight ratio in this. This weighs what, 12?
This one's just over 1,200 pounds. Okay. I think it's 1221. And the one behind you is just under 1,300. It's like 1280, 1290.
So 340, that's about 4-point-something pounds per horsepower?
I've not calculated that, I'm afraid. It's 615 horsepower per litre. Sorry.
No, but I mean, for what it weighs, power to weight, it's about 4 point...
We'd have to calculate that, I'm afraid.
4.6. Well, what I'm saying is, if you've got a Hellcat, that's about 6.8 something. So, just to give people a perspective of the range, I mean, that's pretty...
In Europe, we calculate around per tonne, so we'd say 615 horsepower per tonne. For example, that's more than a Bugatti Veyron or a Chiron.
Right.
As an example, just to compare.
And if you don't believe that statistic, it also holds a track record on many tracks, beating all the hypercars as well.
There's a magazine in the UK called Evo magazine.
Oh, Evo is fantastic.
Yeah, so they use the same driver and the same track for every car.
Right.
And for a long time, the last generation BAC Mono was the fastest. And then when obviously the new generation car came, it went even quicker. So we've got the top two slots.
We first met about 10 years ago when you came. That's when you started, about 2011, 10, 11, 12?
The original generation car launched in 2011. Mm-hmm. And we iterated it all the way up to 2019 when we showed the concept, which is Mono R. That opened the door to the second generation, let's say, of Mono.
The thing I find very exciting about these cars is there's a whole generation of people who think 3,000 pounds is a light car. And it sort of is compared to everything out there with all the safety equipment, steel door beams and airbags and all that kind of stuff. Well, I like Lotus Elans. I've got a Gordon Murray Rocket, which is 775 pounds. And it's really amazing what that power to weight ratio can do.
I mean, you know, the car industry is going through a lot of disruption right now. And obviously, cars are different things to different people. You know, to most people, most of the time, a car's transport.
Right.
And it has to be optimized for that with all the safety equipment and the emissions equipment, all those types of things. Who knows, you know, in the future it might be electric, self-driving, it might not even own it, maybe you just subscribe to it on your app and it drives, picks you up. It'll be great as transport for that. Let's say they're A to B cars, but you and I, we like A to A cars, don't we? We like driving as a hobby, as a sport, and that's what
the really hard part is selling a spouse. Honey, I'm thinking of getting a second car. Oh, good, okay. And then you show up with this. Yeah, it's just, because this is a single seat vehicle, if you haven't figured that out by now. 1,200 pounds is so incredibly light, extremely sophisticated. I mean, this is like F1 suspension here, isn't it? Yeah,
it's all pushrod suspension. But just to your point about you know, the single seat.
Right.
All of our customers don't have such a wonderful collection as you do here, but they have cars for other things. They've got a nice McLaren to go away on the weekend or to take a friend on a track and scare him. They've got a Range Rover to go on holiday with the family. They've got a car to go to work. This fits into a collection. The collection might be 5 or 6 cars, it might be a 50 or 60, but this fits into their collection. It's for Sunday morning, the wife and kids are still asleep, I'm going cars and coffee, meet my pals, and I'm going up into the canyons.
And so what you're saying, there's no practical reason to have this other than having fun.
Exactly. In a way, if you imagine a sports car compromises its function as transport a bit in exchange for driving pleasure. But if you take that to its natural extreme, we build a car around you, or we mold the seat, we mold the steering wheel, the pedals are set for you, it's all unique to you, this car, and you experience what's, you know, the closest thing to a formula car. And for people who don't know what a formula car is like, think of a 4-wheel superbike.
And this is perfect for the guy whose wife doesn't want him to have a motorcycle. You know, so.
Well, that's again, we've got
a sensible alternative.
Yeah, well, we've got customers who said exactly that. I had a customer, he sent me a video, he said it's the perfect product at the perfect time of my life. I met him on an MV Augusta track day, And he feels safer in this, obviously. He's going just as quick, and it's a very similar experience. It's very, very much influenced by bikes. We can get into that later, perhaps, if you want, with the aesthetic treatment of the car, but I come from bikes as well myself. Right. I know you do.
And this is not just for looks, this is a roll cage, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're not obliged to by law, but we've tested that to the F1 regulations. Right. So a typical car would be tested to 2 times vehicle weight by a rollover. This is tested to 18 times.
And just so people at home understand, this is not a kit car. It's not something you assemble, because there's so many bad replica kit cars around. They actually ruin it for real cars, because they get burned on something they bought for half the price of the real one, and it winds up costing them 3 or 4 times the price of getting something which. This is engineered to be a track weapon almost, isn't it?
I mean, my background is design. Mm-hmm. So I studied automotive design. My brother Neil, he studied automotive engineering. So we lead the 2 teams within the business that generated the car. But as kids growing up, our father took us to the Arrows Formula One team.
Right.
And just seeing that technology, that engineering there, and we want to do every single component just as good as we can. And once we get it as good as it can be, we want to make it lighter. Then we want to get it lower and get it to the center and then get it closer to the driver. So all the development through the generation of car from 2011 to now, it's all been about following that philosophy. And because the car doesn't have to fulfill any transportation function, we're free to just have a clear look at what's the best way to make this component.
You've been a racing family pretty much your whole life, eh?
My grandfather was more bikes. Right. My dad was more rally cars, let's say. And I think Neil's probably more on the rally side than I am, but we both went more the racing side. I raced go-karts, Neil raced Formula cars and things.
Well, let's talk about the engine now. What do we have here? It is it's a 2.5 liter.
Both cars share the same 2.5 litre engine. The internals are very much different in R because it revs 1,000 RPM higher. So they're normally aspirated, there's no turbocharger. Right. Very lightweight aluminium block. And like I say, the standard car, let's say, is 315 horsepower, and the R is 343. They both share the same dry sump system. So
4-cylinder?
They're 4 cylinders, yes.
Right. 2.5 liter. 4-valve head, 2-valve head?
Yeah, 4-valve head, yeah.
Twin cam?
Yes.
Okay.
And with variable valve timing and obviously, all the modern accompaniments to a high-tech modern engine. We've got to meet emissions just the same as anybody else.
And what transmission?
It's the Hewland FTR. So it was originally developed. Like you know that. Well, that gearbox was originally developed with Dallara and Hewland together for Formula 3. I think if there's a Formula car that this is the closest to, it's an F3, to be honest. If you remember the F3 cars with 4-cylinder, before they went to the V6s, they had the similar kind of air intake. So that gives us our package, effectively. The wheelbase is the same as an F3. It's a very tried and tested gearbox. And
Dallara goes all the way back to the first Lamborghini Miura, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
So
you know that name, I know.
This guy's been doing this a long time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had Bizzarini here at this garage, which was a huge honor. Went out in he didn't speak English, I didn't speak Italian, just like just a lot of noise. But he was.
It's international, isn't it? When you like something, you get on.
So it was very exciting. Okay. So the biggest difference between these two is this is more power
and less weight.
And less weight. What does this one weigh?
That's just under 1,300. I think about 1,280. Okay. 1,290 pounds. So it's achieved by titanium exhaust, magnesium gearbox case, magnesium bell housing, shear plate, basically everything we could.
Or you could skip a couple of lunches and you'd have an R. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
They look incredible. I mean, it's like nothing else on the road. Something else I found fascinating, I've got the Gordon Murray Rocket. I've had that 25 years. The brake pads aren't even halfway worn because the car is so light. You save on brakes, you save on tires. The tires age out before they wear out. You know?
Well, that's an interesting. But I mean, the consumables on a car like this, because it's physics. I mean, you're not trying to stop 3,000 pounds. You're trying to stop half of that, a lot less than half of that. It's still one of the reasons we had the challenge of meeting with the design of the tire, actually, because with such a lightweight car, you struggle to get temperature into the tire.
And there are so many things when you're building a car, so many regulations, you have no idea how hard this must be, how complex this must be. And it was hard to do this, wasn't it? I mean, it's incredible
Absolutely. I mean, pedestrian protection, that's one of the big ones. Everything's got to have a 2.5mm radius on it.
Right.
They take a sphere with a stick and they just try and imagine everywhere a head or an elbow or a shoulder could hit.
Right.
So if you look closely around the car, you'll see all these different details. And if you do see something that's sharp, you'll find that a 100mm sphere can't get to it.
Right.
So if you can't get to it, then you don't have to blunt it. So that's just one thing, and then the visibility from your mirrors, the heights of your headlight, the positioning. We did find a loophole actually in the regulations. There are no positional requirements for the main beam in most jurisdictions,
right.
And so that allowed us to put them in the front of the car, kind of Le Mans inspired.
I mean, the Ford GT, which was incredibly successful, 2005, 2006, they couldn't build it in 7 because the rule changed and the lights had to be 2 inches higher. And that would have made it look like a bug-eye Sprite or something.
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
So they just stopped production and designed another whole
It is a bit of a minefield meeting all the regulations.
Well, I mean, it's a credit to you that you're able to do it. You know, it's just, so many people bring automobiles here. It's a prototype. Well, that'll be fixed by production. Well, no, it's not. If it was, you would have had it fixed by now.
Right.
Know? Now, I know the steering wheel comes off. Can we pop that off and you can show us the different functions?
Sure. So you remove it to get in and out of the car. It makes it much easier.
And a great anti-theft device. Just take that with you when you go in the restaurant.
Absolutely. There's also some storage which I can show you later. So you can lock it in the car when you leave it. So you'd have to carry it around if you don't feel a bit self-conscious walking into the bar with a steering wheel.
Like, what an accident. Hey, give me a drink, will you? I just hit a guy. Yeah.
So the steering wheel's made to measure to the driver, so we can mold these grips. We mold them in clay while you're having your seat molded. It fits to your hand, and then we scan it and 3D print it.
Right.
This is actually a generic one because this is a test car. And then essentially every control almost on the car from your steering.
Here, go over the controls. I'll show it up here.
So here you've got the start and stop. Here you've got some controls for the screen. Here you've got your headlights, your main beam, indicate left and right. You have a horn here. This is a neutral button to get the race gearbox into neutral. It's a sequential box like your motorcycles. Right. This is hazard, and this is fog lights. And then on the back side, you have the shift for up and down shift. Right. You have an auto shift here, so the car, it won't shift like an automatic, but it'll stop you hitting the rev limiter. Right. So rather than bounce into the limiter, it'll shift for you.
Okay.
And then here, this is a launch control to program the launch control.
Okay.
If you want to.
How many speeds?
It's 6 speeds, six forward and 1 reverse.
Okay. Oh, very nice. What else do you? What size wheels are we?
These are 17-inch wheels. They're a carbon hybrid. We believe we're the first company in the world to have done them. We did them back in 2016 now. So it's a billet and CNC machined aluminium center and a carbon barrel. So I think they're 4.7 and 4.9, so they're under 10 pounds.
Right, and wheels. I don't imagine you wear out those discs anytime soon.
We've never sold a set of discs to anybody, actually. It is the point we were talking about earlier about consumables. We have, obviously, people go through brake pads and they go through tyres, especially if they go on track, but we've never sold a set of brake discs.
Wow, that's funny. How does one, can you access the engine? I guess you really can't, not easily.
You can. These 2 rear panels come off. You just need a small tool to release the fixings. But you can get to the top of the engine for things like plugs and coils. You can get to the cooling system either side with the side pod, through the side pods. So it's, once you take the rear panel and the side pod off, which is done in a few minutes, you've got really perfect access to the engine.
Yeah, it's a great looking thing. I love it. From the rear, it's fantastic.
Well, that was something we did on the latest generation cars. So on the early cars, we had, for example, the crash structure was separate to the aerodynamic function. And what we wanted to do here is try and share the function with one component. So instead of having a crash structure and then cover it in bodywork, we've actually made the bodywork is the actual crash structure.
Oh, I see.
So at the front, it's given us a bigger storage area and less components and less weight. And at the rear, it's allowed us to integrate the fog and reverse light and the number plate light, the number plate bracket. We're trying to do as many jobs with each component as we can. Right. The lightest component is the one that doesn't exist.
And what's the price between these two? What is this one?
I'd have to check with the dealer in the US, but you're looking at around 300 and around 335, is approximately.
Which is a tremendous amount of money, but you almost have to go to the hypercars, $1 million P1s, F1s, Well, F1's really not. That's a collector car at this point.
I mean, it's not just about performance. Obviously, it's about how the car makes you feel and how it reacts. There's no servo brakes, there's no servo steering. So there's an experience which we're selling effectively as well. But yes, if you want to measure it, the difference between a GT3 RS and a 918 on track is 1 second.
Right.
The difference between a 918 and us is 5. Just to give you an idea.
Yeah. And can you adjust brake bias?
Yes, we've got adjustable brake bias on the right-hand side of the cockpit, and on the left-hand side we've got the adjustable traction control. So that's the only real electronic aid we have at the moment, which just allows you to either turn it off if you prefer, or have some intervention should you start spinning the wheels in the damp or in the wet.
What's the reason one would choose one over the other? Obviously, this is the fastest one.
Mono is a bit more road focused.
Right.
Both cars share the same anti-dive, anti-squat geometry, so they've both kind of benefited from the development of the car, but the damping, the springing and the suspension settings are more tailored towards road, and especially the drivetrain. The gearing is slightly higher just to bring the revs down a bit.
Right.
And the engine revs less high, and it has more mid-range torque. So we've got lots of customers. We have a Mono Owners Club.
Right.
We do events all over the world. A lot of them are European based, obviously, in the Alps, Northern Italy, places like that. And for the people who enjoy driving them mostly on the road, in the same way there's guys who like riding the motorbikes mostly on the road, they don't all go and do a track day.
Right.
Then the drivability, let me say, of the more road-focused Mono is probably the product to have. And for those who want the last word, as light as we can make it, as high rev as we can make it.
How much lighter is this than this?
Nearly 100 pounds.
Oh, 100 pounds, huh? Any color you want?
It's more than any colour you want. Standard BAC Mono is robot white.
Right.
And then there's not a table of colours and prices. It's just anything you want. So this is an example of a visible carbon car with a Union jack. This one's obviously inspired by the Gulf scheme.
Right.
Whatever it is you want, we've got customers who have an inspiration, and they work with our design team to make it exactly how they want, or they ask us for ideas, or they've seen another Mono that they'd like to use as inspiration. So every one is unique. In the early days, was probably half the cars were done like that, but now it's almost every single one.
And how many have you produced in the 10 years?
Just under 200.
Wow, okay.
We're doing around 30 at the moment, but with the orders we've got, we're going to step that up to about a car a week, which is still tiny. I mean, we're opposite Jaguar Land Rover in Liverpool, England, and they make a new car every 92 seconds, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So 20, 30 or 50, it's...
To me, this is what the English do best.
Thank you.
Just when they follow the Formula One teams, the guy's in some little shed in Bournemouth or something. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's just me.
When we built the prototype, these rockers we had them built up, and we were going to a show to present the car, and that something had gone wrong with the tolerancing or something. They didn't fit, and it was about 11 o'clock at night, and we got on the phone to a company that specialised in F1 engineering. Someone answered the phone at 11 o'clock at night. We sent them the CAD model at 2:30. Our sister drove and picked up the parts at 2:30 in the morning, and they were on the car, and it left the next morning on the truck like it was intended.
Up close, it just looks like quality. I just see so many bad attempts, I mean, this looks like real engineering.
It is, Jay, and it's
nice. It really is.
It's nice you say that, and I think it's partially also because Neil and I, we take a pride in what we do, of course, but nobody has to have something like this. No one has to have a nice watch.
No, you have to have it. No, I disagree. No, you have to have it.
But it's not just a tool to just go fast.
Right.
It's got to give you pleasure in every aspect. How well it fits you, the seat, the steering wheel, how it feels, how it handles, how it looks. When you're cleaning it, it's not a tool you take out of a drawer and hit a nail with. And so, we put a lot of attention to detail. There's a lot of 3D printed parts, which it's been a revolution for us really, because as a small manufacturer, to make plastic parts that would normally be too expensive, because you'd have to have expensive tools to make them, to only make 30 parts out of it. With 3D printing, we've got 3D printed mirrors, 3D printed mirror arms, all the front headlights, the rear headlights. We've even, on this particular car, on the Mono R, the inlet runners are 3D printed carbon fiber reinforced plastic.
Did you ever consider, even in the early days, an open wheel model like the Atom?
We did look at that. We wanted to optimize aerodynamics.
And this is better aerodynamic-wise, correct?
It's hard to say whether it's better or it's worse. I mean, it worked for us, let's say it that way. Obviously, legally, we have to cover the wheels.
Okay.
We have to put the lights in a certain position.
Right.
And so one thing I've always liked about the single seat, if you can imagine, drag is a function of how slippy the car is, but how big the frontal area is. So you're trying to make your frontal area as small as possible. So compared to the first car, we've optimized that. But if you imagine you put a person as reclined as it's comfortable to sit, and the 4 tyres, that's the smallest frontal area you can have. So we want to try and put headlights in front, rear lights behind, and we want to put the engine, the gearbox. We want to try and fit everything within that silhouette. And then you end up with a kind of an aerofoil shape down the centre, and you end up with these pods out to the outside. And that just worked for us, this particular layout, yeah.
Do you need a key to open this?
You just need the key for the car. The car needs to know it's you. So I can show you on this car, because I've got the key for that car. So it's an electronic fob. So the car automatically shuts itself down when you've finished driving it. So for example, if you've done a track day and the engine's hot, you just walk away from it.
Yeah.
It'll cool itself, it'll look after itself, it'll set itself for the next start, and then it'll shut itself down.
Right.
It's got a very small battery, so obviously you wouldn't leave it switched on forever. So you just switch the car on. And then we have this, which is 3D printed key fob. That's the key for the fuel filler, and that thing there is what the car's looking for to identify that it's you. Then we open the hatch. There's a small safety at the front. So you've got two storage areas. You've got this is the crash structure I was telling you about. So that your feet come to this area here.
Right.
So all of this front part is all part of the crash structure, but we've incorporated its bodywork, it's the aerodynamic function, it takes the front headlights, and it's your storage area as well.
Right.
And you have a tray here as well, which is removable. It gives you access to the pedals should you want to adjust the pedals or something. And if you just take a look under there, Jay, here, that's what a gas strut looks like on a BAC Mono.
Oh, look at this. What's on here?
Yeah, it's the size of a pencil. And it's very light. I mean, it's...
Well, this is all carbon fiber
exactly.
as well,
And it's not only carbon fiber, but it's graphene infused. So graphene, a new wonder material that was discovered at Manchester University, and when added to a carbon and resin structure, increases toughness, tensile strength, compressive strength. So compared to the original car, the new generation car is about 9 kilograms lighter, 9 kilograms, let's say 20 pounds, just in the carbon components by the use of graphene.
Wow. Well, I'm anxious to go for a ride. Which one should we take?
It's up to you. You can go up to the mountains in one and back in the other if you want.
Well, this one looks pretty good. We like horsepower here in America. Let's try this one.
I think that one will be good as well, because it's going to be the biggest difference to the original car you drove.
Right, because I drove it 10 years ago and was very impressed. So.
And if you like, I'll follow you in this.
There you go. Well, pretty amazing ride. Got a long stoplight here. You know, very comfortable. Haven't really gone out on the open road yet, but I noticed the wind tends to go over my head. I thought I'd be getting all wind blown here, but it's not bad at all. Yeah, I mean, it's a Formula One car for the road. What else can you say? It's not an inexpensive car. It's a very expensive car, but it's still probably a third of the price of a car that's equal to this in performance, like a P1 or something like that, 918. I love that pneumatic shift the way it's like a gunshot. Well, it's very comfortable. Suspension very compliant. I like that rifle shot every time you hit the shifter button. That's a pneumatic air pump, just kind of slamming it into gear. Really is a kick, boy. Everything works so seamlessly. It really is amazing. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Pretty amazing. Big gap between third and fourth gear. Well, that's pretty amazing. You know, obviously I'm not a race car driver, but from a drivability, very comfortable, very compliant, much more relaxed to drive than I thought. I thought so it was going to be just frantic. It's not. It's deceptively fast. You look at your speedometer, you're going 85 or 90 miles an hour. Yeah, it's well built, handles nicely. You know, it's so funny, so many of us can't make these cars do what they're supposed to do, but the fun is you can never reach the limits of the car, you know, so it always remains exciting and fun to you, you know, and no rattles, no shakes. I mean, yeah, it just very, very nicely done, and more than enough power. Took it to 9 grand a few times, and boom, it just was flawlessly. I noticed there's a big jump between third and fourth. I suppose if I took it to 9 grand in third.
I was going to say that actually the gaps get smaller, so it's 1500 RPM in the lower gears. I think fifth to sixth, only 600 RPM. It gets a smaller and smaller gap each time.
Like I say, if your spouse won't let you have a motorcycle, this is the way. This is the way to go. It's nicely done, well built, well made, handles fast. Congratulations, my friend. You did a great job.
Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate that.
I hope you guys liked this. I know I certainly did. It's hard to believe you're still in the middle of Los Angeles. See you guys next week.